Today on Grand Thumb, am I holding one of Al Capone's pistols? We know that Al Capone loved the 1903, one of John Moses Browning's most wonderful designs. Right here, we have a pistol that is correct for the time period. We have correct ammunition for the time period and many other things as we delve into the mystery of who did this pistol belong to. It was discovered at the Thornton Distilling Company. We have the owner here with us today to tell us a full story. Then we will do a full historical background. And you know what? We're actually going to fire it today. I cannot wait. I love history. I love guns. I am super autistic. Today on Grand Thumb, Al Capone's pistol, maybe? Now, of course, this content is free and it is kept free by our most wonderful sponsors. The biggest sponsor of the channel is, of course, Primary Arms. Do you want awesome US-made optics? Well, they got them, the HTX-1. The point is, they got everything you could possibly want, and more importantly, I think they actually have a vested interest in your future. Email them and say, what should I study in college? Should I marry this girl? Who knows what they can help you with? Just email them. They might like it. Guys, if you're looking for a rifle, we are proudly sponsored by Bravo Company USA. Go and check them out. Their rifles are the best equalizer between cost and performance, and we have long recommended them here on Grand Thumb. You can't go wrong with the MCMR. Give them tons of love. Email them and say, you know what, BCM? Grand Thumb says to love you, and I do. And of course, Zydex Computers, the owner, loves machine guns, shoots all the time, and that's good enough for me, and they make awesome gaming computers. Final thing is, of course, going to be Last Shot Arizona. Guys, we recommend duty ammunition. Last Shot Arizona specializes in that best ammo. M855 Alpha 1, 70 grain TSX, all that cool ammo that you know and that you love and that you need. You should buy through them. We recommend 13 mags, a very good defensive ammo. They certainly have it. Guys, that is enough talk. Let's go ahead. Let's delve into the history of maybe Al Capone's pistol. Before we get into everything, let's talk a little bit about the 1903. So if you guys come right over here, we of course have Al Capone's pistol, ? And we also have a great reproduction here from U.S. Armament Manufacturing. So the 1903 was designed by John Moses Browning. Now, the 1903 is chambered in 32 rimless, otherwise known as 32 auto or 32 ACP. The 1908, which it is often confused for, was chambered in 380. So understand that the guns that we have here are 1903s. This was a very popular gun during the Prohibition era. Now, what is a Prohibition? Well, essentially the US government said no one's allowed to drink anymore. And this was, of course, a big problem. Now, you might not understand that. Maybe not all of you drink. So let me put it into Zoomer terms for you. Imagine if the US government outlawed vapes and started throwing your vapes into the sewer. You'd probably freak out and you'd start fighting people. Well, that's exactly what happened to the people when Prohibition was instituted. Because of this, there was a lot of crime. And from that crime came the wonderful 1903, because it was learned to be a very reliable and a very handy little gun. That is enough talk about the 1903 for now. So let's bring on the owner who discovered it himself, and let's hear his story. Let's go from there. Sir, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for coming out to Idaho. I know it was quite a flight for you. We can't thank you enough. I understand you have a really cool story to tell.
Thank you for having us.
Hey,
my name is Andrew Howell from Thornton, Illinois. We have Thornton Distilling Company. Our building, it's the oldest brewery in Illinois. It's built
That's
in
crazy.
Yeah, so it was built in 1857, pre-Civil War. It's got a really rich history there, pre-Prohibition brewing history. 1920, the Chicago outfit takeover, Al Capone, Johnny Torrio, the henchmen, they start operating from the facility, bootlegging alcohol, and operate all the way throughout Prohibition. There were several government raids. There's some really fascinating newspaper articles from that time capturing the history. And we came across the building in 2013, 2014, started construction in 2014, trying to revive it. It's a 20,000 square foot facility. We have a bar and restaurant there, as well as the craft distillery.
And by the way, it is really beautiful. I have to compliment you on that. So it is a really nice facility. So you did a wonderful job with it.
Thank you. Thank you. My partner Jake is a preservationalist, and so it was really important for us to bring the history back to the building. The building, it was built there in the 1850s because it sits atop a limestone artesian well.
Okay.
We have this underground catacomb that gives us this amazing pristine limestone filtered water. And during the 1920s, when Capone and these guys took over the facility, they started utilizing the water to bootleg spirits. Probably the water quality was less important to them than it is to us today.
Sure.
But that having access to that spring water is what made us want to, restore the building, bring it back to life.
Of course.
But during the construction process, we found a lot of really cool stuff. We found postcards dated from, mid 1800s all the way up until 1920s. The 1920s, these are Pony Express beer orders from taverns around Illinois, from around the Midwest, ordering more beer from the Bielefeld Brewing Company. We also found old signage. There's some really fascinating glass plates. One of them, Van Nestor Brewing, we found buried in back of the building.
No kidding.
And then most recently we found the Colt.
I can't wait to hear this story. I'm so excited. I mean, this has taken off at this point. I've seen this on Fox. I've seen this everywhere. Like, this is kind of blown up for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people really interested in it. We have a wedding venue at the facility. We host a ton of weddings. I had recently hosted a bridal fair. We have a lot of photographers come in, and they gave me feedback essentially that a lot of the couples really like getting their photograph taken down in the artesian well. It's like a catacomb, looks old world, very dramatic lighting down there. But the way we have it situated by the fountainhead, there's 2 lights. The photos are backlit.
Yeah.
Apparently that's an issue for the photographers.
Is that an issue?
That could be an annoying issue.
There you have it from the expert himself.
They suggested that we install another light so people, when they take their selfies and stuff down there, or couples when they're getting their photos down there, aren't backlit. So down there evaluating for electrical infrastructure, where can we run some conduit without it sort of interfering with the beautiful old world catacomb. Came across this old vent from what we think was from a potbelly stove there.
Okay.
And in doing so, found the gun. So,
Okay, you have to tell me. You have this little vent for the potbelly stove. So what happened? You're reaching in there and you're like, oh, that's a gun.
So during construction, we searched all over the building, trying to find stuff. We found the postcards in the ceiling.
So cool.
When we were ripping down old boards, I had stuck my arm in the vent trying to figure out where there's some old PVC that looks like it's from like the 80s in there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, there was a pathway that someone installed PVC in. I had shined my flashlight in there, many times in the past. I stuck my arm in there to like try to pull on the PVC to see if I could pull it out.
Yeah.
And in doing so, like, I found there was a piece of mortar that was very loose on the side. So I peeled it back, and then a second large chunk, and it opened up essentially like this big sort of void in the wall. And this was holstered, fully loaded in the side. So
Like, you have to tell me, like, when you grabbed it, were you like, is that like what was that like?
so I thought it was. I shined my light in there. It caught a little bit of the nickel.
Yeah.
Then, yeah.
You're like, okay, so you pull this gun out, and what was it like? Was it in the holster? Was it loaded? Like, what was it like?
Yeah, it was fully loaded, covered in soot. So there was a lot of dust and debris on it, but
perhaps from that potbelly stove. That could be plausible, I suppose. And it was just like this, just sitting in the holster.
Yep.
That's insane. So you pull this out, you have a gun. Who knows what era it's from? Because you're not really a gun guy, from what I understand, right?
Yeah, I have a couple, but I'm not a gun guy. And
by the way, he shot on the range of the AR-15 out to 600. He's great.
Thank you. But I realized it was fully loaded, and was a little shocked because when we first opened, we let customers venture down into the artesian well. So in my head, I was like, great, we have a fully loaded pistol just within arm's reach. If like the right person would have been inclined to stick their hand in a really kind of intimidating hole.
As a business owner, not the best feeling to have in the wrist, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so you pull it out. I understand you have some friends in the police department, so you're like, hey, can you guys like come see like what I have right here?
Yeah, I had texted Terry. He's one of the lead detectives in town, and
shout out Terry.
Yeah, Terry's the man. He was off for the day, and so he put me in contact with one of the officers that was in town, and he came in to look at it and ran the number and cleared it.
Yeah, I remember seeing the video of it. We'll put it up right here, but that thing was just filthy looking, just completely covered in dust. So they cleared it for an end. They're like, yeah, it's not stolen or nothing. They're like, all yours?
Yeah, he evaluated it, said essentially it's so old that this is like an antique. It's essentially, it's not in our database. Hold on to it.
Yeah.
And
Gladly.
secure it, and
Yeah.
no.
And now you have it. So here's what's really interesting to me. So obviously, no gun background really for you, especially when it comes to historical context. So when I heard this story, I was super interested because I love history, guys. And so the first thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to do a lot of the verifying of the history and stuff. And we'll get into it in just a moment. But like, you just pulled this out of the wall, and that, every time you hear it, it's like, oh, we found like this old pistol. You're like, oh, sure you did. But in this case, I think that there's a lot of really good evidence to directly place this with the correct time period for when Al Capone was operating in that direct area. Or what were some of the other gentlemen's names who were, I say gentlemen, but the gentlemen's names who were working during that time?
So Johnny Torrio was the head of the Chicago outfit. Big Jim Calissimo, when Prohibition breaks out, they get into the bootlegging business. We have a photo of Torrio with Calissimo in front of the building. And then Al Capone enters the story, I think, in like 1924, 1925.
Yeah, that's what I understand about 1924, 1925 to about 1933. Now, here's what's really interesting to me. From a historical perspective, it is well known that Al Capone carried a 1903 in his pocket everywhere he went. It's small, it's handy. Now, of course, we know which 1903 Al Capone carried, but there's also something very interesting that you told me about the history of bootleggers from back in the day. They hid guns in almost every room that they were in, right?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of research on the Prohibition era just because of the history of the building.
Of course.
And my understanding is that, it was nice to have a pistol within arm's reach. So if you had a big building, you might be in a compromised situation that might require easy access. So
It's very cool. So there's a couple of caveats we'll have here. So obviously, we can't say with 100% certainty that Al Capone himself owned this gun. But given some of the facts that we have here, I think we can say, at the very least, this man probably saw this gun at some point. Probably, and that's a really cool piece of history to me. What an amazing little facet of history you have at your distilling company right there. And I understand you have this on display as well, right there, right near where you found it, correct?
yeah, by the entrance to the well, a gentleman, a local Invictus Safes, gave us this beautiful safe. It's on display.
Oh, that's
people
so
want to
cool.
come in and check it out. We do tours and all that stuff. So
I can't wait. Now, I understand there's a little bit of lore that goes with your brewery as well. I know lore is based a little bit in fiction, a little bit in fact, but can you explain some of the lore behind your brewery too, so people can kind of get maybe a breadth of the understanding of what the locals know about the place?
sure. So I mentioned the building was built in 1857.
Yeah.
At that time, John Bielfeldt, a German brewer, migrates over, tries to find a location that had a good fresh water supply. There was this booming population in Chicago. There were a couple breweries that actually predated it in Chicago that burnt down in the Chicago fire, but they were utilizing water that was contaminated. Back in those days, there was no wastewater management system in Chicago.
Oh, no kidding.
You could get sick from drinking water. It was actually safer to drink beer because the alcohol content would kill pathogens or any bacteria that's in the water. So,
Drink more beer.
right? So, Bielfeldt finds this old log cabin brewery that was on the banks of Thorn Creek with access to this, beautiful limestone spring water. So he builds the building in 1857, operates all the way up until 1920.
Wow.
And so he was making phenomenal beer, became some of the best beer in Chicagoland.
And of course, you're still making the best, hard liquors and stuff, correct?
Well, yeah, so we try. So,
Yeah.
we were really captivated by the history of the space, being able to utilize that same limestone water to make all of our spirits.
That is really cool.
And so, we learned a lot about the pre-Prohibition history of the building. We had heard a lot of legends or local lore about Capone in the space. And there's, like I mentioned, there's some really fascinating articles from the Tribune and newspapers about the government raids in the space. We found one where, 500 Thorntonites tried to bum rush 20 government agents that raided the space. I think like a week or two before, they had raided the brewery, dumped out like 2,000 barrels of beer, rum, and all this stuff. And then when they came back to, I guess, dump out the rest, there was a group of people that were very upset about that. So we have some really cool photos from the Historical Society in town that kind of highlight that Prohibition era. And then there's a lot of lore, as I mentioned, like locals talking about, Capone rolling up in the middle of the night. People had told us, they found bodies in the walls in the 1950s. And I'm like, taking that with a big grain of salt because we can't really substantiate.
I heard the brewery is haunted. Is that true?
People claim that it's haunted, and we want to be known for the quality of our spirits.
I understand
not those spirits, so it's got this rich history, and people talked about Capone taking people down into the well that owed him money and stuff like that, and so, but this kind of finding this down there adds to the
lore
mystery
and the mystique. Well, there is so much to go through when it comes to this gun, and I think a really cool piece now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break down the history of what I know and date the specific pistol, the ammunition, and the holster, and maybe that could help some of the credibility behind you finding it.
Thank you.
So let's get into it. I can't thank you enough for coming out and bringing this amazing piece of history. Guys, I hope you're as excited as I am, because after I talk about the history of this and we date it, we're actually going to shoot it. So what we have right here is the 1903 that was found right by that artesian well and the hole in the wall. So the biggest things for me was dating everything correctly to ensure that we could help with the veracity of the story. Because you know me, guys, I am always a huge critic of everything. I'm sure you've all heard the stories of the SKS that was 100% in the Vietnam War, or the Luger that belonged to Hitler but it didn't. So I wanted to really make sure that I did my due diligence. Now, when it comes to this, the first thing we have to say is that they did some of the due diligence for us, because they were able to, of course, search the serial number and find out the date that this was manufactured. The date that this was manufactured was 1921. This predates, of course, the time that Al Capone came to power, which certainly supports the fact that he could have very well owned, or at the very least, that this pistol was certainly associated with the moonshining operations at that location. So first thing that's going to check out is going to be the time and date of this handgun. Now, a couple of really interesting features. Maybe some of you haven't seen a 1903 that looks like this, so let's talk about this. There were two main finishes that the 1903s were finished with. You either had a blued finish or you had a nickel finish. Later models did have different finishes, such as parkerization, and you could order some specialty finishes, such as silver and gold. But in this case, we do have a nickel finish on this particular gun. In addition, we do have the original hard rubber grips that would have come with the 1903. So far, everything that we have on this matches up to the historical narrative of what this variant would have had. The original screws, everything is pristine. A lot of times on these 1903s, you'll see that this hard rubber grip will crack because of time, etc. So as far as if I could venture a theory, I would guess being in the proximity of that vent for that potbelly stove, a lot of that hot ash certainly would have helped with the preservation of this gun by one coating it, as well as adding some amount of dryness to that particular environment. And if you see that the video they sent us, that hole in the wall is actually quite dry, despite being in close proximity to a well. There's not everything that I can always explain, and perhaps we could bring it to an expert when it comes to how water leaches into walls and stuff, but everything that we've seen has shown that that area is very dry and has historically been very dry. So that is something that is very interesting. Now, the gun matches the time period. The question is, what about the ammunition? And we are very lucky, guys. We have such a treat for you, because we had the original ammunition that this gun came with. So first off, this gun is not chambered. However, if I'm not mistaken, it was chambered when you found it. Am I okay to pull these rounds out of the magazine?
Yep.
What a treat, guys. Okay, these magazines typically hold 8 rounds. Let's see how many we have here. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. We are actually missing 1 round. Hey man, I don't know. Maybe they killed somebody with this and hid it in the wall. You never know. So let's take a look at this ammunition and let's see if we can correctly date this to the time period. Yeah.
There wasn't one chambered in there when it was found.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
The magazine was fully loaded, so maybe I'm using the wrong term.
Oh, you're totally fine.
Okay.
No, that's fine. That's no problem. I'm glad we got the clarification. So it was not loaded, gentlemen. There was nothing in the chamber. There's simply 7 in the magazine. The magazine can hold 8, therefore we could potentially be missing 2 rounds if there had been 1 chambered with a full magazine. Interesting. So let's take a look at this. It's a very interesting round. As you can see, the ball ammunition itself looks very silver. Now, if we look at the head stamp, we're going to put up a really good photo for you guys, but it says DWA. And specifically, this ammunition is from Deutschwerks AG, which was a German company. And this ammunition would have been manufactured in about the time of 1924. That puts it at the exact time period that would have been in relation to possibly when Capone, because obviously after manufactured would have had to have been imported. This fits all of the normal timelines that puts this in a place that lines it up with being in use during the time when Al Capone would have been at that distillery. How cool is that? And you can see how beautiful the ammunition is. Even as old as it is done surprisingly well at being preserved. So again, we can say a lot of things about this gun looks too new, but this ammunition is without a doubt from 1924. This is the original ammo that I believe was likely stored in the gun. The magazine as well is correct for the weapon that we have right here. And what's really interesting is the spring still is working perfectly. And come take a look at this. You can actually see tons of that old ash still on the inside of that magazine. Now it has some of that oil because he did bring it to with a friend who was able to clean it, oil it, make sure that he preserved it, which I definitely approve of. You do want to preserve an amazing piece of history. But again, this all matches up to the time period. So far we have the gun, 1921, the ammunition, 1924. Now here was a tough one, the holster. This looks like a modern holster, but you might be incorrect because there is a lot of unlearned history when it comes to the history of early inside the waistband holsters. Let's delve into it. So when I first saw this holster, I was skeptical because I believed that this would be anachronistic. By anachronistic, I meant that this wouldn't have fit the time period for this particular gun and was likely maybe from a later era, which that can always be a theory. A theory could always be maybe this belonged to somebody's grandfather and they stowed it away at a later time, it was stolen, etc. But to me, the holster is actually very compelling. So first off, I want to give a big thank you to Turner River from the Smith & Wesson forums. He is an avid collector and documenter of these early holsters. So from him and from research based off of his research, I was able to find out that, we'll pop up a photo right here, as early as 1878, LePage's actually made a holster that looked exactly like this. Now, it was a canvas that was rubberized, but as you can see, it had the exact same belt clip as the one that we have right here. A lot of people believe that these belt clips didn't come about until much later in time, 1950s, 1960s. That is not true. These were actually made far earlier, and you can see them in a lot of examples of early holsters, whether it be from LePage's, whether it be from H.H. Heiser. These holsters were very well known. Now, here's where it gets a little bit difficult. We can't precisely name who made this precise holster. The reason for that is, at the time of the 1920s, you had a very interesting time in history. As we went from horseback primarily to the automobile, a lot of these companies that were making saddles suddenly found themselves with a giant loss of business. Because of that, a lot of these companies moved into making leather holsters. This was a fairly common design of the time, and because of that, it could have been made by Heiser, LePage's, or it could have been made by one of these smaller saddlery makers who then converted over to making holsters. But what we do know is that this fits the typical design that we would have seen from that time. Now, we also have to note how good of condition this is in. Just like the gun, it was coated in that ash. So if you can take a look at it, you can see the stitching does not look like machine stitching, rather looks hand or perhaps early machine stitching. You can see that this clip fits with those early LePage's belt clips that we had. And as we turn it over, we can see no types of markings. Look on the inside. I don't want to be too rough on this. You can see some reinforcement on the inside there, but otherwise we have a completely unmarked holster. Now, it could have been that the stampings could have faded over time, but again, we've taken a pretty close look at this without being able to precisely identify any particular holster maker. Now, this type of holster, made for what they would call 32 autos at the time, is very common of the era. So again, if I were to have to put a date to this holster, I would say anywhere from the early 1900s all the way to about 1920s. This holster 100% fits with the time period of that era. So if we bring this all together, we have our firearm, 1921. We have our ammunition, 1924. And we have our holster correctly dated to pre-1930s, which definitely puts it in the realm of having been hidden in that distillery during the era of the Prohibition. Now, here's what we cannot say. We know that Al Capone loved the 1903. We know that Al Capone carried the 1903 everywhere. We know that that particular 1903 is well documented. However, could Al Capone have bought other 1903s and hidden them throughout that distillery since he was there often? Or could this have belonged to one of the many men who worked for him because the 1903 was a popular gun? We can't say that with certainty without good photographic evidence. But what I can say is that the historian in me believes that given his proximity to the distillery, how much he was there, I believe that at the very least, he probably laid eyes on this. And to me, that means everything. What a cool piece of history. Now, we've done a lot of talking. Wouldn't you say it's time to fire this weapon? Now, before we do, let's go ahead and let's open it up. Let's see what the insides look like. So, the 1903 has a very interesting takedown procedure. So, if you come in really close right here, Sawyer, you can see this little arrow mark. That indicates how far you need to pull the slide back in order to undo it. This one is post-bushing, so it doesn't have a bushing. This was an update made to the 1903. So what we're going to do is we're going to push it back and we're going to rotate the barrel. It is a fixed barrel blowback design. Easiest way to do this, as noted by many gunsmiths and historians in the time, put your index finger here, put your thumb here. We're going to push this back until it lines up. You have to kind of get that just perfect. Spin that barrel, release it slowly, and that whole thing will come apart. Okay, this is really cool. So we have this original 1903 opened up. Look how good that spring still looks. Just look at this piece of history right here. And it's of course been oiled since to preserve it, but this is in excellent condition. If we take a look at the rails right here where the slide would have ridden on, we can see very little wear overall. This gun, the wear that I'm seeing is primarily from storage. You can see discoloration from oil over time. There's some rust spots on here as well from, of course, being stored for a long period of time. Otherwise, I can see not a whole lot of patterns that would suggest any type of wear. We can take a look at where this was, where the barrel would have been locked in. So you can see the barrel, excuse me, gentlemen, while I rotate this. I'm very excited, as you can tell. The barrel has these grooves that fix that barrel onto that to make it a fixed blowback weapon. So looking at these right here, I can see really not a whole lot of indication that there's much wear on these other than the storage that we saw. This looks like a fairly clean gun overall. Perhaps it was fired in the murder and then stored away. Yeah, twice. So let's take a look at the slide now. Wow, you can see the original serial number stampings on the inside and then wiping some of that grease off right there. Edges are actually still sharp. So from that machining from back when it was made, that is cool. You can see not a whole lot of wear. Maybe you can see the gun was certainly chambered. You can see the brass wear marks right there. Perhaps chambered, but certainly not fired much. I can see very little to indicate that it has a whole lot of wear on it. What a very cool piece of history. So I don't know if this has been fired since it was found on the wall. Of course, we can't say that with complete veracity that it wasn't moved at some point. But I would like to believe in my mind that this weapon has not been fired for over 100 years. Certainly, there's a possibility that was not fired at all, which would mean that we're about to fire a 106-year-old weapon for the first time on camera with our Phantom camera at probably about 500,000 frames per second. I hope you guys enjoy it because I know that I am so excited to fire this very real piece of history.
So in my head, I'd like to fantasize that, you know, Big Jim Colosimo was murdered, and some people say, you know, Torrio orchestrated it, and that's where Capone enters the picture. So I've always wondered, you know,
if this was it, just
yeah, maybe, yeah. So
honestly, who knows? History has been stranger at times.
you know,
Okay, guys, we're now going to load these rounds back into the magazine because we are not going to fire this very priceless ammunition given the possible historical context. So we have to bid a very fond farewell to our Deutschwerks AG silver ball ammunition and 32 rimless. Look at that going back in there. I love that there's only 7 rounds in there because to me that kind of, you know, what happened to the other 1 or 2? You never know. Maybe he's in that well. That's why it tastes so good, you know? Yeah. What a cool piece of history, guys. I hope you're as excited as I am. Or if you guys just think I'm a giant nerd, you can comment that as well, because that's okay. I am a giant nerd. All right, sir, I'm going to give you back this magazine. Don't get this anywhere near me because we're going to begin shooting after this. All right, boys, let's shoot this gun. Okay, we are all set up. We're going to go ahead and load our first round. We're using modern ammunition. I'm so excited. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. John Moses Browning, it still works 106 years later. That's amazing. You gotta fire your own gun, man. You found it. So we got a Prohibition dry officer here trying to steal your distillery's great spirits. Go ahead and go ahead and click that safety off. Okay, give it to her. Nice shooting, boss.
Thank you.
Great shooting.
Thank you.
How'd that feel?
It's awesome.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Let's come take a look. Look at that. For a guy who doesn't shoot that much, you did pretty dang good, dude. It's all that Nebraska in you or something.
Well, maybe.
How easy was that gun to shoot?
Very easy.
It's a very light recoiling weapon. What's cool about shooting, I think, historical weapons is it puts into context why so many people carried them. Like when you hold that out and you shoot it, you're like, oh, I understand it. Like this is such an easy gun to draw, to hold, to point shoot with. Very minimal recoil, easy follow-up shots. It makes a lot of sense why every guy carried one of these, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we got old Sawyer right here. He's gonna fire 2 rounds at this guy because, well,
it's literally history. This is insane. Am I the first lefty to shoot this?
probably.
All right, 2 rounds.
Wait. Now fire it one-handed.
Oh, of course.
You gotta fire it like a gangster.
Okay. Hand on the hip even, right?
Oh yeah.
Dude.
Dang, you hit the steel.
Damn right I hit the steel.
Well, we've done a little bit of shooting with this guy. We're gonna set this guy down. We're gonna go and talk about the 1903 in general. We're gonna run a few fun drills with it, and then we'll finish up, gentlemen. Let's get it done. Now, we have to give a big shout out to U.S. Armament Manufacturer for providing this reproduction. They make them all within the U.S., so a big amount of love to them for helping this very historical video out so we can shoot a 1903 a little bit more. We don't want to put a lot of wear and tear on that very historical piece of history. But what we're going to do now is explore some of the shooter's perspectives to understand the historical context for why this was carried so much. So it's called the 1903 hammerless, but it's not hammerless. Rather, as you saw when we broke it down, the hammer is merely concealed by the slide. The reason for this was when this was drawn from the pocket or from some other location, you wouldn't have to snag it as much on anything as compared to having a large hammer on there. Now, in addition to that, being a direct blowback weapon, it's a very simple design. Because of that, it was known for its reliability. Now, the 32 ACP is, of course, a very anemic cartridge by today's standards, and it was understood back then as well. However, they were very much so of the opinion that it was better to have something on you than not at all. Vest guns, pocket guns was a well-accepted standard during that era. So this is a great example of history, and let's show you how effective these were. So we're going to go ahead and start with this somewhat concealed. How should I start with the concealed? Just under my jacket right there, having a conversation with a few dastardly fellows right here.
These are your old school Chicago ops.
They're the dry Prohibition officers. Okay, so we'll give 1 to each. Tell them when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Yeah, these have, and he's dead. These have very little recoil. Let me show you that. Even one-handed, when I'm shooting this guy, you can see how it just doesn't really recoil much. Now, the ability to come back onto target is very easy. So let's take a look at that. So when I'm one-handing it, after I shoot it, I'm up and to the left barely. The ability to reset that is very easy. Now, if I were to fire it two-handed, of course, I have a modern grip, so I can't exactly replicate the grip that was used back then, because, to be honest, I'm not particularly sure what grip was used during the Prohibition era. But if I use a modern grip on this guy, that thing doesn't move at all. These are very reliable, very easily controlled weapons, and you can see why they were so popular for the day. Now, we'll do one final drill because, well, I got to LARP a little bit. All right, so, you know, I've been running my distillery, moonshining, and suddenly I've got a copper pulling up right here. But after I blast him, his friend's going to step out. So we have to get both of them. So we're going to be testing a little bit of distance shooting. It's about 20 yards. Then we'll be going to 5 yards. Yell copper when you're ready.
Okay. Shooter, are you ready?
Yeah.
Copper.
Oh no. That was super fun. Okay, next up we'll do one close up. Show you that. We're having a leisurely night at the bar when they reveal to me they're undercover Prohibition agents. Of course, we don't take too kindly to that. So I'm going to surreptitiously draw my gun, then back up and get these two guys right here. Nice little fun drill.
It was really the North Side gang. This gang on gang violence.
Oh, sorry. No coppers. It's all gang on gang violence. Nothing. Yeah, all gang on gang violence. Which is okay. We're okay with gang on gang violence. That's okay. Another thing I want to point out before we stop is we were just looking at the lands and the grooves of the rifling of the inside of the barrel. They're very sharp. This gun was definitely not fired very much, maybe just twice.
Wow.
Very cool piece of history. I can't thank you enough for coming all the way out here, just out to us in humble Idaho, just to film with this guy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So where can people find you?
Thornton Distilling Company is located in Thornton, Illinois, about 30 minutes south of the city up in Chicago. So you can find us online at thorntondistilling.com. If you want to visit the distillery, we have tours. You can schedule a tour. We have a really nice bar and restaurants. So Thornton Distilling Company, we make dead drop spirits. And so you'll find dead drop on the shelf in 5 different states now. Mm-hmm. Dead drop's an old bootlegging term. So
oh, no kidding.
Back in the day, if I were to make you a barrel of whiskey and then I hid it behind like a barn.
I'm okay with that, by the way.
Yep. So if you come back, you know, when the coast is clear at midnight to pick it up, that's a dead drop. And so we kind of look at the history in the building as us picking up from where our predecessors left off.
That's neat, man. I love that. Now, something that we always do at the end here. Now, guns are cool. All this is cool, but we like to allow our guys to give a little bit of dad advice to everybody. What would be a little bit of a dad advice, whether it be fun, whether it be serious? Give your own flavor on it.
Well, a dram of whiskey is always half full. So, yeah, never pass up a good glass of whiskey. So
That's it right there. Thank you so much for coming on,
Thank you,
man.
sir.
We love it. This is so cool.
Thank you.
All right, guys. As always, stay tuned to Grand Thumb. We have tons of cool things always coming. Of course, check out the Patreon, guys. We're going to be gaming on there, having a good time. Me and Sawyer are so bad at games that you're going to beat us. But more importantly, you support the channel. Get in there. That's all for now.